5/27/2020. Hi, my name's Tom Yakopin, and this is the Tom Yakopin podcast. Happy Wednesday. I'm here today with my friend and guest, Mark Caskey, who you're going to hear his story as an entrepreneur. He's a musician, a music lover, born and raised here. Well, actually, North Carolina, Western Pennsylvania. He'll tell his story, but it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to spend some time together talking about his life, his vision, his family, where they've come from, what they're doing now, why they do it. And I think it'll be a lot of fun. I enjoy spotlighting self-employed small business people because the average Joe has no freaking idea, right?
The entrepreneurs.
The entrepreneur. And really the far-reaching impact, and I think we'll get into that.
Absolutely.
Employees and lives and jobs and wow.
Well, it was an easy decision. I've lost every real job I ever had, so I had to create my own job. In all seriousness.
I can't wait. So, again, welcome aboard. If you're not familiar with our podcast, you can find us on Facebook, Tom Yakopin Podcast. Excuse me. We're on YouTube. And then I have this really crappy little website that I have to upgrade. It's Yakopinions.com, which is kind of indicative really of what this shows, because mostly it's my opinion or, the opinion of others. So again, you be the judge, weigh the material if it's if it takes that kind of thinking. But check us out online if you like what we're about, the people we're spotlighting, the stuff we're talking about. Like it, subscribe, share it with other people. Really, our goal is to make this a better place, become more connected, give people an opportunity to tell their story. So, Mark Caskey, tell us a little bit about, first, you're married, your kids. Tell me about your family. Where'd you come from? How did you get here?
So I just celebrated my 58th birthday on Sunday, and it was great, and I feel good for 58, and I never thought I'd get this far. Hope I die before I get old was the old rock and roll saying, but now that we're old, I'm glad I didn't die. But I'm originally from born in Charlotte and raised in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. My parents were from Pittsburgh. Dad was a Central Catholic graduate, and Mom was Sacred Heart, which is the Catholic school. And they both did maybe a half a semester or a full semester at Duquesne. They met, in 1959, and they both took jobs with Eastern Airlines and got transferred to open up an airport for Eastern Airlines down in Greensboro, High Point, in Winston-Salem, which is the Triad Airport. Mm-hmm. So after a little stint in Charlotte as well. But I was born in Charlotte. I only lived there for about eight months or so I'd have no memory of it. Winston-Salem, just a great place to grow up. Hometown. Andy Griffith, wasn't far away, and just a great upbringing.
You don't have any North Carolina accent.
Oh well, when I moved to Pittsburgh in 6th grade, and I had a deep accent.
Okay. And
all the kids made fun of me, and that was quite the story back then. I don't want to tell that whole story because it's kind of ugly, but I did have a very strong Southern accent, and when I go back, I pick it up immediately.
Isn't that something?
Yeah, it's amazing. But my dad worked. He got a job with Eutectic Welding Alloys, a Swiss company, and he was VP of sales through the whole eastern United States, and he transferred us up to Waynesboro, Virginia for a quick 18 months, and then his parents were getting old, my mom's parents were getting old, my grandparents, so he wanted to get back to Pittsburgh, so I moved here and moved Upper St. Clair in 6th grade. Now, this wasn't Upper St. Clair, this was very middle St. Clair.
Very middle class.
Yeah.
Middle class Upper St. Clair.
We were maybe Upper Bridgeville.
Okay.
My dad, God bless him, he passed away last August. He was not a wealthy man, but he wanted his 6 kids. I have 5 brothers and sisters, wanted us to go to good schools. And, even back then, in the late 70s, Upper St. Clair was the place to be, and still is some of the best schools in Pennsylvania, as you know. So, came here in 6th grade, and I have 2 brothers and 3 sisters. We're all spread apart, about 2 years apart, and grew up there, and it wasn't Upper St. Clair living. We weren't driving Mercedes and Beamers and things like this. It was just a nice place, middle class to grow up. Mm-hmm. Graduated from high school in 1980. Still to this day, some of my best friends are Upper St. Clair graduates from 1980. There's about 10, 12 guys and probably the same amount of females that we still have reunions. And
I've met some of them at your place.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I think Lloyd Welling, did you go to school with him?
Lloyd's a year younger.
Year younger?
Yeah.
But many others, yeah.
Yeah, right.
And then we went to the Outlaws concert, I think.
Tammy.
Tammy.
Tammy and Steve. Yeah.
It's so fun. Some of my better relationships to this day,
Right.
that high school connection, man. I mean,
yeah.
if you've maintained a friendship throughout, there's something special.
Yeah,
because you experience something quite unique with those people.
Right. Part of growing up, something happened to my dad when I was about 16 years old. He was a VP, and his best salesman, I can remember his name, was Woody Shackelford. And my dad was given instructions from, it's a Swiss company from overseas to, Woody Shackelford was getting up there in age, 65 years old, and they said, we can't afford this guy anymore. He's our best salesman. We're paying him a lot of commission. We want you to get rid of him. And my dad said, no, I'm not going to get rid of him. He's my best sales guy. And they ended up firing my dad when I was about 16 years old. And, all of a sudden, my dad was without a job. And that was scary. That was 1978. All the steel, my dad sold welding products to the steel mills, coal mines, schools for maintenance programs, manufacturing companies all over the Eastern Seaboard, mainly in Pittsburgh. So my dad ended up starting his own company called Valmark. Value, your mark of value was his tagline. Mark named after me, and he was selling welding products. And even back in those days, it was tough to get going as an entrepreneur. And this was his first gig that he ever did by himself. But I watched him real closely. And, my dad, he being a good Catholic guy and going to confession, every couple of weeks and, Sunday Mass all the time and, dropping a lot of money in the...
He's partnering with God, man. I totally get it. I understand.
The stairway to heaven, so to speak. Yeah. So, my dad ran into some trouble though. He did that for about 3 years, and by the time I was a senior in high school, my dad got audited, and basically the IRS took our house when I was a senior in high school, and it was a big to do. Basically, we had to sell the house, and I think we owed around $50,000. He owed around $50,000. As a small businessman, he wasn't really doing, not that he was trying to break the law, but he probably wasn't doing the accounting like he should.
I agree. I can relate to that. So,
Right.
I figured out how to make money as a commission salesman years ago,
Right.
far quicker than I figured out how to really manage it.
Yep. And, thank God we have our accountants, a third-party accountant, and we have a CPA in-house that I'll talk about later. But that really hit me. And so, when I was graduating high school, a lot of my friends were going off to college. A lot of my friends had learned trades at the trade schools and things like that. I didn't learn a trade. I had started working when I was a freshman in high school, 14 years old, at Brookside Lumber Company, and I worked there from about 14 till I was about 20 years old, and it was a great job. But I couldn't go to school. I really didn't have any money. And in 1980, the steel mills were closing down. The inflationary rate was incredible. You couldn't buy a house. The interest rates were 18, 19%. You couldn't start a new business. My dad picked a bad time to start a business.
I understand.
So I went to work, and I did a lot of things. I tried a lot of different jobs. I tended bar. I cooked in a restaurant. I ended up working with juvenile delinquent kids back in North Carolina. I answered an ad, and worked with it was called the Jack and Ruth Eckerd Foundation from Eckerd Drugs. Eckerd Drugs is no longer in business, but Jack had a daughter similar to Art Linkletter, if you remember. Art Linkletter's daughter got into trouble and ended up flying out a window and dying. Jack's daughter went down the same path, so he started this, and it was successful for her. She became very successful and worked for her dad and things like that. So I spent about 3.5 years working in an outward bound type facilities, living outdoors, taking really, hardcore kids out of the big cities, Charlotte, Raleigh, that worked in these camps up in outside of Hendersonville, North Carolina. We were on this camp, just gorgeous camp in the mountains. We built our own cabins that we lived in and things like that. And we were called chiefs, me and my fellow counselor. He was Chief Walt, and I was Chief Mark. And, did that for 2 years. And then I worked in a juvenile detention center in Asheville, North Carolina, with kids too. By that time, I realized, God bless the social workers that we all know, and there's just not a lot of money involved, and I went from tending bar to making 120, 150 a night to making 120 a week, if that. So came back to Pittsburgh and applied at Pitt. I was accepted at Pitt earlier when I was 18 years old, graduated from high school. So I was a late bloomer going to Pitt. Spent about 3.5 years working, and then I went to Pitt and I went full time, and I graduated from Pitt in less than 3 years. Just taking 18 credits a semester. I was poor at the time. I couldn't afford, to only take 12 credits. If at that time, and I think today as well, you would pay up to 12 credits, which would be 4 classes, and you could whatever else you wanted to take was free. So I'd go in the summertime and things like that. So eventually graduated from University of Pittsburgh and had a friend who's one of my partners at Steel Nation, Alan Reed, worked for a company called Universal Scheduling Company, and I had a job lined up before I graduated, and we were management consultants. I like to say we were efficiency experts, and I got to see Ford Motor Company. I got to see GM up in Detroit, and I got to see widget makers and watching raw materials come in the front door and products going out the back door. A lot of furniture companies, United Airlines. I was in San Francisco for almost 3 years. So did a lot of traveling. At the time, well, let me go backwards a little bit. So when I was at Pitt, I was tending bar, and this goes back to 1986. I was tending bar on the Gateway Clipper fleet, and I became the lead bartender so I could make the schedules. And of course, I would schedule all my friends on the good trips, and the people that I didn't really care for, they could do the sightseeing trips where some of the elderly people might give you a quarter or might not, where some of the late nighters, here's $20, right? But that's where I met my wife, Marty, at the Gateway Clipper Fleet. She was a waitress, and I was a bartender. And my funny story is I was setting up my bar on the Liberty Bell. And this is, the cruises come in at 6 o'clock or leave at 6. So it's probably, 3 in the afternoon getting ready for the launch. And I'm setting up my bar and making the schedule and for the following week. And all of a sudden, 10 beautiful women. 10 beautiful, 10. They were all 10s come walking in. And they were all Art Institute of Pittsburgh students that were applying for a job. Long story short, they all got the job.
Oh, yeah.
And there was this one that was very tall, and I'll remember that she was wearing designer, whatever the designer jeans back were in the mid 80s, and she had on a cowboy boot that came all the way up to her knee, and she was taller than me and taller than anybody in the room. And I said, I have got to meet this girl.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and not to my wife will kill me telling that too much of that story, but we became good friends, and we had a group of people that we would work from 6 to 10, and then we'd go to the bars and restaurants and concerts in Station Square, and it was a happening place back then, even in the 60s or 86, 60s, in the 80s, mid 80s, had a real good time. So we started dating, and she was going to the Art Institute, I was going to Pitt, and we both graduated about 88, I think it was. And like I said, I had a job management consulting for Universal Scheduling Company. And I was out in California on this. I was there for the 1989 Loma Prieta earthquake, which was the baseball game when they were getting ready to start the Giants.
I remember that.
And I believe it was the Athletics.
I lived in Baltimore at the time.
Yeah, and the earthquake broke out, and I was right near the airport in San Francisco.
Highway was severed.
Oh, yeah. It killed quite a few people. Yeah. I think 39 people on the Bay Bridge collapsed. Yeah. So after about 3 years, Marty was she would come out, and I could fly her out, for free. The company would pay for it, or I could fly home every 3 weeks, I think it was. And she finally gave me an ultimatum. She said, if we're going to make this thing happen, you're going to have to move back here. And I said, I kind of like that job, but I really like you. I really love you, So I quit my job, and she said, well, why don't we start a company? I said, what are we going to do? She said, she was working for Mark Advertising.
I like that. What are we going to do?
Yeah, what are we going to do? And she was working for Mark Advertising, and she was real early in the Macintosh, Adobe, the Photoshop, even before websites were being created. And she was one of the top in Pittsburgh. But at the time, she was not making a lot of money. So she said, I know this. I know the marketing and advertising, and I know all the artwork and things like that. I don't know the business. I don't know how to sell it. I don't know how to write it. I said, well, I'm a pretty good writer. Why don't I do all the business development, write all the ads, and you do all the artwork? Bingo. So we did. We started MC Squared in 1990. I'm sorry, 1991. We started MC Squared. And MC Squared Advertising, and it was nice. We did about $1 million a year. I think we did a lot of print advertising, and so you're brokering print jobs, and we were really good at knowing the print works, and still to this day I know print very well, and we did okay, But after,
It's kind of nice that it came out of just that simple initiation and step of faith, where you two kind of kicking off your romance, right? Or that out of that you said, okay, we're gonna become productive from Jump Street,
right,
do something together.
Right.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's a great story, actually. I love it.
Yeah, and I won't get into why I lost my job. I didn't really, that's a whole other story.
cares?
But I've lost every job I've ever had for probably saying something wrong. I totally understand. So, we started MC Squared. It was a good run. It was a 14-year run. But what happened is the young whippersnappers, our kids started learning even before, Neil's generation, by then probably 2000, 2005, everybody's designing website. We designed hundreds of websites. The technology was moving so fast. We would pick up a client, we'd lose 3. We'd pick up 3 clients and lose 2. We're going to take our advertising in-house. We could see the writing on the wall. Print advertising, it's amazing. The Post-Gazette's down to 3 days a week, I think it is now. Who knows? The Wall Street
Observer
Journal.
reporters like this thin now,
Right, yeah.
It's like they're cutting corners every way they
Yeah,
can.
they have to, with all the digital technology. So we were doing a lot of real estate advertising. Probably our first venture was with Mr. Jack Pyatt, owner of Millcraft Industries. When he was starting South Point, we did all his print ads, all his residential, all his commercial, all his industrial, everything. That park was nothing but a field when we looked at it. And we worked with Jack for about 5-6 years till we shut down. And he was big, and we worked with Heartland Homes. We worked with T. Ryan, which is an offshoot of Ryan Homes. Worked with the Miranda Homes a little bit. Worked with mainly Heartland Homes, Deauville Management, Terry Bove, and those guys, developers, and those types of things. Meadowbrook is a good example, right across 19. We, when we started working there, it was a field. It was farmland, and now there's 600 and 700 homes there. Who knows? So, did a lot of real estate. We started the Washington County Parade of Homes, and I think the first year we had eight homes. By the second year, and every year after that, I think we had like 30, 40 homes. We had sponsors, and we had $200,000, $300,000 budget, and made some money, and sold a lot of homes. So, towards the end, when we decided to shut it down, I went to work for one of our other clients, a commercial builder called General Industries, and we shut it down in 2014. And I went to work with General Industries for only about a year and a half. And I lost that job too. And I was getting really good at designing steel buildings, and especially the coal industry. You got to remember the coal industry. Obama, and I'm not blaming this on Barack Obama, President Obama at all, but at the time, between the EPA and Barack Obama being president in 2008. Before that, coal was going to be shut down in its infancy. We didn't know about natural gas so much then, but we learned fast. I went to work for 1 year, 365 days at a contract. I didn't get paid a thing. I didn't have any benefits or anything, for Olympia Steel Buildings down in McKees Rocks. And I learned to design buildings very well. That's where I really learned my trade, after some of the coal buildings that I'd done. So, I can remember seeing all these white trucks in 2006 and all these Louisiana license plates, Oklahoma, Texas, and good old boys from down south, and I could speak their language really easily.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and got to know some of these guys. Up at Frankie's. At the time, it was called Augie's Roadhouse. Before that, it was called Quail Hill. You know, the
Before that, it was Harley's Whorehouse.
Yeah, Harley's Whorehouse. No, that was across the street.
Okay.
If you remember, that was the hotel.
Oh,
No,
yeah.
you're right.
Yeah,
You're right.
the
It was Harley's.
Harley's. It was.
No, after it was Harley's, it was
Brown. No, was it?
oh God, Grinder Switch, not Grinder Switch. Back in the 70s, because I went there for dinner.
Yeah, it was more of a dinner joint.
It was a dinner, yeah. And
I remember my parents going there.
the Granary.
The Granary.
It's called the
Thank
Granary, right?
Thank you. That would have, yeah.
Yeah, and it was a decent place.
It was.
You know, and it sat idle, I think, for about 10 years until Russ Johnson opened up. And so anyway, I got to start talking to some of these guys, and I'm like, what's going on here with all these white trucks? You know, you guys all wearing white hard hats and talking with Southern accents, and guys would whisper to me, you know, like, we're doing something bad, you know. Hey, we're gonna have some oil and gas coming out of this region. It's called the Marcellus Shale. Boy, it intrigued me, Tom. I said, what the hell is the Marcellus? What is a shale? What is the who's Marcellus?
Right.
And is she good looking?
Right.
So I remember he took me to a well site, and it was the original Renz well, R-E-N-Z. It's out towards Hickory. It's past the Houston plant on Route 50 for all you local people that know the area. And I get out there, and I'm looking around. This guy took me. Randall Pinnell is my buddy. I hope he's watching this. That told me all about this. And I get out there, and there's no buildings. And I'm like, how can you be producing? Coal has many buildings.
Yeah, chutes and
all kind of stuff. There's no buildings. They're all temporary buildings. He said, well, you know, at the end of the day, we're going to reclaim this. We're going to plant trees and grass, and you won't even know it's here. You know, you'll just have a Christmas tree coming up in the middle of this field. So a couple Christmas trees that are producing, that are going right into the ground and moving. You know, every once in a while we'll bring some trucks in to grab some of the liquids and oils and things like that. So I said, wow, I really wanted to see some buildings. He goes, well, if you could see up on that hill, we just built the first compressor station. He said, go see Billy Ray and Bobby Jim or whatever the guy's name. I can't remember the guy's name. So they were up there. They were the operators of. It was built by Range Resources, and this is Range's. If you know Range, in the very early days, they were known originally as Great Lakes in Ohio, and then they changed. They came here, and they eventually partnered with Mark West, who's our biggest client now, Steel Nation biggest client now. So I went up there, and I remember driving up the hill, and this compressor station. There was probably 4 engines in it. And my bones started to rattle. It was that loud. It was like being next to a freight train.
Really?
Yeah, it was just the loudest thing. And I'm looking around, and I see a school over here. I see a bunch of churches in Hickory, some nice houses, some not so nice houses over here, right in the middle of civilization. And I'm like, this can't be right. So these buildings were just tin cans. They were cheap. But the guys didn't know. See, you got to remember that down in Texas and Louisiana, you're building on a farm, or you're putting compressor stations on 10,000 acres.
Yeah, it's vast.
It's
vast.
not making noise.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
Now you're in Appalachia, and you have these hills, and and you're 23 miles south of Pittsburgh. Suburbia, we're encroaching on suburbia, or suburbia's encroaching on that. So, but I had my eureka moment, Tom, and I said, I can do this better, faster, cheaper, safer, all the positive things that you would think about. That's what I want to do.
That is really. Yeah. I'm so glad that I got to hear that, because like that's right there. That is destiny, man. Right. That is a whole lot of things coming together.
Right.
Boom.
Well, the neighbors were not happy at all. First of all, you have the oil and gas guys coming in. You know, they're from, and they mean well. They don't want to live up here. They don't want to start their family. They want to teach us how to do this. Mm-hmm. You know, and which they did. And all my friends from Louisiana and Texas, they were great teachers. This is how you should really do this. But I taught them a lot too.
I bet you did.
From my coal experience, coal can be loud, but it's usually in the middle of nowhere. Coal can get hot, so you have to air handle and cool buildings down, those types of things. Coal can be very dangerous, so can gas. You have to do a lot of safety processes, those types of things. explosion. All the electric in our buildings are explosion proof. So at that point, I had that eureka moment, and I said, I know what I'm going to do. So I had a 365-day contract with Olympia. Let me go back. I first went to General Industries and I said, I want to start a oil and gas division. He said no. I shook his hand right away. I said, it's nice working with you.
Wow. And
I went to Olympia for 1 year, and I had a 365-day contract. And in June 8th of 2008, I incorporated Steel Nation.
There we go.
So we're I think it's another week in 2 days. So June 8th will be, this coming June 8th will be our 12th year anniversary.
Yeah, so, fantastic.
Yeah.
What a story, man.
Yeah.
So, the gas and oil business, Steel Nation. I can remember I moved back from Chicago in 2008. My father was ailing.
Yep.
He passed in 2009.
Right.
And you know the rest of that story.
And we had met about a year later.
I was at a chamber meeting.
Yeah, that's where we met.
Okay.
Right.
And I don't do well in crowded meetings. I really don't. I'm actually an introvert on one hand. You know? So I'm over at the bar having a few stiff drinks to kind of integrate and feel. And I met you over there, and we got to chatting because I still have your original card.
Right.
And I thought, that guy's pretty cool, and you're my neighbor, you know?
Right.
And we can get you, or at that time, my mother's and father's neighbor.
Right.
But that's when we met. Yeah. It was in that neck of the woods. So you've gone from, you birthed this to today. What's Steel Nation doing today? Where are you at? What kind of impact are you having in the business, in the region, economically, in the lives of other people? Not only the people that you're serving by improving the quality of their life through noise mitigation, right? Which is something I heard you say that's a big issue.
Sound mitigation.
Sound mitigation. Right. Okay. But where are you guys at? What is Steel Nation? Like what's happening?
So let's go back to that eureka moment.
Yeah.
And I said, this tin can of a building's making a lot of noise. It's overheating. They got all the doors open. They're doing everything wrong. I can do this better, and safer and quieter and all those things. I had known that I wanted to call the company Steel Nation before I incorporated for probably a good 6 months. And yes, I sent a letter to Dan Rooney at the Steelers saying, I'm going to use this name. And he did write me a letter back and thankfully granted me. And I was very happy.
Very nice.
Yeah, I still got that letter somewhere. So, I had a little house. It's a Sears Roebuck Kid house that I bought the property that right behind you on 11 acres. It was originally on 10 acres, bought another acre. The original house we paid $119,000 for. A Sears and Roebuck Kid house, not fancy at all. Not even 2,000 square feet, somewhere around 1,700 square feet. But it was a decent house, So at the time, had a little bit of land, had a little bit of project. I think at that time, I owned a beach lot that I paid $20,000 for in North Carolina that I never built on. And to this day, I own that piece of sand.
Nice.
I had $6,000 in my pocket. In my checking account when I started Steel Nation. That $6,000 was gone in 2.5 days.
Wow.
Right? Just buying stuff, buying buildings. So I had a couple coal jobs to get me going. Okay. That went with me, that followed me. I didn't have any oil and gas jobs. So I would go out and meet with Range Resources. Mark West wasn't really in town yet. EQT, Dominion, all the local companies more than any. EQT was Equitable back then. And they all gave me meetings. They were super guys, down to earth, dressed like me in jeans and steel-toed shoes. And they would I had those little cards that I always have. These are my favorite cards. I had these made up, but they had all coal buildings in it. There wasn't really one oil and gas building in it. They were all coal. So I had these. And I had
Can I have one of those?
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's sitting on it too long. I can get you a fresh one.
No, this is perfect.
So great meetings, gentlemen that would give me meetings. And at the end of the meeting, they would say, Mark, what's the last oil and gas building you did? And I said, well, I haven't done any yet, but you're going to be my first customer. And we'd laugh. It was kind of a power of positive thinking.
Yes,
said,
sir.
You know, always get them shaking their heads up and down. Yeah, you're going to be my next. And they're like, nope. Sorry, Mark. I'm not going to be the guinea pig. I can't be. I got to use qualified, We had what's called ISNet World. I had to answer 30. It took me 3 months to do ISNet World. And it's all about insurance and safety and those types of things. It's complicated. I won't bore the audience with it, Tom. But, they said, listen, go. You're going to find someone out there that's going to let you build a building. As soon as you build one, come back and see me because I like your style. I like your safety. I like your quality. I like your sound attenuation, your air handling, your overheating, your all this stuff. And, how you design and the erection of the buildings safely, blah, blah, blah. So finally, that summer in 2008, I go to see the Clarks. Here's where the music part starts coming, And our girls are little kids, and I took them out to see the Clarks at the Washington County Fair. And of course, that's quite the thing to see out there, and everybody having a good time. And, you got some bikers and you got some rock and rollers and you got some hillbillies and it gets a good mix of people. And I am walking down the runway to see the Clarks or the racetrack part. And I run into an old girlfriend, Christine Walton, from high school. Not a girlfriend, a friend.
Right.
I said, Christine, what are you doing? I hadn't seen her in a couple of years. What are you doing now? I said, I work for Atlas Energy. I said, really? I just had a meeting with Atlas Energy last week. I showed her my card. I said, I want to build compressor stations. I want to build transmission stations. I want to build processing plants in the gas world. She said, who did you meet with? And she said, Bob O'Brien or what I can't remember his name. Or what I said, Bob O'Brien. She said, that's not the right person. The person you need to see is Tim Williams. So she gave me his number. She texted him, said, Mark Caskey wants to build compressor stations. I know you're struggling with your supplier. He says, have him call me at 8:00 tomorrow.
Whoa.
Yeah. Went and enjoyed the Clarks, bought her a couple drinks whenever her and Marty were drinking and her friends. I think Melanie was with her at the time. I'm saying these names because I know they're going to watch this eventually. Hi, guys. So I did. I called him at 7:55 the next morning, and he was grumpy. He was not a friendly. All the other oil and gas guys were friendly. Tim Williams was grumpy. Like, yeah.
Did it have anything to do with it being 7:55 in the morning?
No, he's an early guy.
He's an early guy.
He that's just the way Tim is.
Okay.
What? Dead silence. You know the deal. Right. He said, listen, he goes, there's no way you're going to get on this one. I got a building that I'm bidding today at 5:00. I'm gonna email you a 1-page document. About 5 pages of compressor drawings, and you got to design that building to your liking. And you're going to do the concrete. No, you're not going to do the concrete. I'm going to do the concrete. You're going to do the building, the fans, all the sound attenuation, the erection of the building, all the doors and everything else, anything to do with the building. I'll do the concrete. I said, got it. I said, go ahead and send it over. He sent it over. I looked at this 1 page. I looked at the drawings, and I had done I did my research. I knew what compressor buildings were. I knew what I was talking about. I knew about sound attenuation. So I hurried up. I designed that building for a couple hours. I did color drawings. I did takeoff sheets of everything I was putting in the building. Mm-hmm. I made it a 30 to 40 page document. And he said, you have to have it to me emailed by 5:00. I had it to him by 4:45. No problems. It was funny. When you're pricing up anything, and as any entrepreneur will know, whether you're selling pencils or $1 million buildings or doesn't matter, when you do your final tally of what are my costs, you're going to come up with these costs. And what is going to be your final number? What is your percentage over there? So I remember tallying up my cost, and I was between, what I wanted to sell the building was between $49,000 and $54,000, okay? I'm sitting there looking, I'm thinking, this is my first chance. My first chance, and it's an important step. Mm-hmm. I got to nail this one
Absolutely.
down. I'm bidding against 3 or 4 other experienced people that have been around, the one company down in West Virginia since the 1950s that were building these compressor buildings and still are to this day. We still compete against them and still win all the time. And I looked up, so I'm working out of a spare bedroom at my little house, my Sears and Roebuck house. And I've got a nice, it was a solid door for a desk, which is pretty cool. It was very solid. And at that time we had a fax machine and barely enough internet to send this this quote out, right? 2008. I look up on my wall, and I had Mike Webster, a nice painting of Mike Webster, number 52 from the Pittsburgh Steelers. God bless him. Was my favorite Steeler of all time. Roberto Clemente and Mike Webster, my two favorite Pittsburgh guys.
Great football player.
Yeah, great football player. You know, sad the way he passed away, and you know, he got hit too many times. Yeah. Let's face it. You know, and I've seen the movie, and we all know the documentary of it. But anyway, I looked at that in 52. I said, well, my sale price is going to be between 48 and 54. I'm going to go in, and I'm going to figure out what the percentages are. I'm going to go in at 52,000 even. Now, all businessmen know, no, never go with a whole number. Always going at 51,955. I said, nope, I'm going Mike Webster, 52,000. I submitted that, nervous as could be, and by 7:30 the next morning, I had my first PO for $52,000.
Awesome, man.
And in the coming weeks, I sold 9 more of those exact buildings for $52,000. Nice. Yeah, so it built up fast after getting kind of the door slammed in my face, or, you know, shaking my hand, come back. Now I had a portfolio. I could take all these buildings, and we got into doing other things too. We were doing sound walls. We were doing concrete work. Now I could take that portfolio and those cards, oil and gas, back to Mark West. By this time, Williams is coming into town.
You have some established credibility,
right. Chevron's coming to town. You know, by 2008, the world was, I mean, it was just gangbusters here. You know, so that's kind of how Steel Nation started. Wow. Yeah,
it was really right place, right time. But you were prepared. Yeah. And a lot of things converged where you had the experience, the know-how, the moxie to get it done,
right,
and the balls to sell the deal.
Yeah.
I mean, really, that's really, I'll tell you what, you know, people have no idea, and we said this before the camera rolled, you know, I don't think the average, it doesn't make them bad people, but they have no idea all of the various and sundry things that go into launching a business.
Right.
And then making that business happen. For example, I have friends, you know, I have two daughters in the beauty business, right? You know, so you go to school, you get your license to cut hair. That's wonderful. Or you're a medical doctor, right? Goes to med school. He's a doctor.
Right.
Well, that's great. What are you going to do with that? You know, what do you do? Are you going to open a practice? Okay, how many people? How many people are in your chair? How do you move this machine?
Right.
And in your case, Steel Nation, you know what? Yeah, you guys did it, man.
Right.
And today, your impact. I want to get into. I love talking about your business, but I want to talk about music, and I want to talk about, you know, some current events as well. Sure. Not that we're running out of time, but we're moving fast. Yeah, we've got 21 minutes left, bud.
Time flies.
But you know, this is so freaking interesting. I'm loving it. So, Steel Nation, I meet you. You're rocking and rolling. You're selling business. You're selling business, buildings, and I think it was last year or the year before. I came to your party over here with the new building, and Father George came out and blessed the group, and you had. You know, some county commissioners and leaders, and I saw a lot of people that have now been impacted in one way or another, whether employees or vendors or consumers or whatever. What's Steel Nation doing now?
So, if you go back, the first year we did about $500,000.
Right.
The second year we did $3 million. The third year we did $6 million. The fourth year we did $12 million. It was literally doubling every year. We couldn't work fast enough. Wow. I couldn't hire people fast enough. Everybody, oh, you're so smart, Mark. No. The blind squirrel catches a nut every once in a while.
Okay.
You've heard the saying.
Yeah,
before. I have. It was really about timing and fulfilling a need. And that's when I wrote the business plan. After seeing the tin can that I saw there, I said, I can do that a lot better. There was no one else in the area that could build a super quiet building. You know, to this day, you know, we got up to 20 million real fast. 2 years ago, we were hanging around 39. We couldn't quite hit 40. So 2 years ago, we got up to 41. Last year, we're seeing oil and gas on downside. So we went down about 5 million. Went down to about 36 million last year. Who knows what's going to happen with COVID this year? But We laid off 6 people. We were up when we had our full electrical engineering. Our electrical engineers asked me if they could sprout out on their own, and with my blessing, they did.
Right.
Last August, September it made it happen. So we lost 8 people there, but we were at our highest point at 36 people. And then when COVID started, we were at 27. We're presently at 21 people.
21.
Yeah.
And these are not these jobs that the gas and oil industry, we're talking about Steel Nation in particular, but these are quality jobs. As you know, I went to high school with one of your employees, Kerry, right?
Kerry Green.
Yeah. And as far, and he and I, we don't talk about business usually when we're together. We have a cigar, talk about old times, but he seems to be very happy. And what I know of the business is usually these are quality jobs providing noble work, a good service, but they're also these people are earning a reasonable wage and compensation.
So we have a lot of engineering designers, high tech people that understand oil and gas and understand construction. They're making good money.
Quality stuff.
They and full benefits, and it's not just those people. Right now, we probably have it's down, but when we're really booming, right now, COVID and the slowdown in oil and gas, we're not booming right now. But we have had up to 100 some contractors erecting buildings for us. Wow. We might have another 40 concrete people out there putting concrete in. So we hire a lot of other subcontractors as well.
So a lot of impact, right? Beside just employees. That's right. And again, and these are people earning good wages or earning good income, which then for a community such as ours, because it's all legitimate business, it's all above ground.
Right.
So this is all taxable revenue, right, for the entities, which again is how things happen in a community.
Sure.
Which brings me to, this business of natural gas. I know you're in the steel building side of it, but energy independence for America. Wow. Natural gas, I've heard some of the negative stuff on the fracking and some of the environmental concerns, although I've spoken with some young gentlemen. In fact, one of my son's good friends, I just spent some time with him up the cabin. Read a study done, I think, by Penn State where, frankly, he came away with a very strong conclusion, sharing with me that for the clean burning energy that natural gas is, the other benefits being that it is a step in the sovereign nation of the USA, divorcing from the perverted relationship that I think where we are dependent upon Mediterranean petroleum or oil derivatives or whatever. It just seems to be a step, especially now post-COVID. I don't want to get off script, but we were saying on the back porch, I think many Americans today are ready to begin picking up products and seeing made in the USA on it. I think, I know me personally, I've woken up, or I had a big, an epiphany or eureka moment where it's like, we've become too utterly dependent on manufacturing abroad. So making America first is resonating in a brand new way. And energy, what could be more important to a nation than energy independence, where we can harvest naturally a product like natural gas, create how many jobs, like what's the economic impact, if you can share that with us, in Pennsylvania and maybe nationally, just the industry in general to Pennsylvania and nationally?
So it's hard to tell direct. When we were at our boom in the last 2 years, Pennsylvania employed somewhere around 200,000 oil and gas people. But what about all the companies that are supplying service to those people? It's huge. It goes down the line. It goes to the restaurants, the hotels. How many hotels have been built in this area?
Wow. Yeah. Manufactured homes. How about driving down to Claysville? How many of those mobile homes that people are just living in?
Right.
Somebody sold those. Somebody built those.
Rentals and everything else.
You're right.
But here in the big picture, we do have an impact tax. It's called the severance fee, but I call it the severance tax. Pennsylvania calls it an impact fee. Last year, that impact fee was $300 million to the state of Pennsylvania. In the last 10 years since it's been here, $1.4 billion just to the state. Okay,
1.4 billion. And
just
a billion
in
is
just
1,000 million.
just in those taxes.
Wow.
Yeah, just in
Severance
taxes.
for your taxes.
That has nothing to do with the normal economy of what we're doing. As you know, as we see right now, America's divided. The left and the right, and it gets worse every day, and it bums me out. It really does. But we're under attack. You know, our air is cleaner in Pennsylvania than it ever has since the Industrial Revolution, since the Pittsburgh steel mills were going. Yeah. Before that, even
I can attest to that.
You know, and that's and a lot of that, and God bless my brothers that are in coal still, and a lot of my friends are, and we still do a little bit of work in coal. But coal is being pushed aside by cleaner, cheaper, more abundant natural gas. Pennsylvania, you know, we used to talk, we're going to run out of oil, so we have to keep, you know, having the Saudi Arabians and the Dubaians, you know, all of our friends in the Middle East supply us. Well, natural gas, we've known about the Marcellus and Utica shales for 50, 60 years. We didn't know how to get it out of the ground. We didn't know how to get it out of the ground till probably the mid 80s, 90s. So it's created, you know, down in Texas, Louisiana, all these states. Well, natural gas, you're burning natural gas. You're cleaning up the environment. We've never been cleaner in Pennsylvania. But you have what I call Big Green, the Sierra Club, and I'm not going to name them by names. Sierra Club's going to be the biggest one there. But Big Green has been trying to shut fossil fuels down. Natural gas is grouped into the same fossil fuel category as coal, and it's night and day.
Yeah, it is night and day.
There's a new movie out, Michael Moore's movie, that's getting a lot of backlash from the environmentalists, and I'm an environmentalist. You're an environmentalist.
I don't believe in littering or.
We have beautiful farmland that we both live on. We take care of our land. We take out in the fields. You know, we're the evil frackers. We're doing everything right.
I believe you are. Yeah.
But the other side, the Green New Deal, the AOC, you know, wants to go to all solar. Okay, there's not enough solar in the state to run my watch. Okay, they want to go windmills. Do I want those Do you imagine if we had windmills right in the hill right here?
No, yeah.
All right, now they don't produce enough electricity to this day. Oh, let me go back. The movie is called The Planet of the Humans, not The Planet of the Apes, Planet of the Humans. And Michael Moore, being very far left, exposes all the bad stuff of Big Green, and I implore anybody to watch this, just to look at the other. You have to watch it.
Okay.
I mean, we could spend an
I wouldn't have
hour
expected that from him.
Not at all.
Right?
No, and the co-producer, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, has been Big Green all his life, and they expose these untruths to make windmills. Where are the windmills coming from? They're coming from China. Where are all the solar panels coming from? They're coming from China. Where are the rare earths coming from? They're mined from China by little kids that are 7, 8 years old. The damage of those minerals that go into all that, it's not a clean proposition either.
And it's not that efficient.
No. But it's not a fossil fuel. Right. But you're using fossil fuels to make this stuff.
Yeah.
But it doesn't produce enough to run my watch. Yeah. It doesn't. It's a big fallacy that in 40 years that we're going to be fossil fuel free. We are never going to be fossil fuel free, because the technology right now, you can't make that enough energy. And look at these third world countries that are coming online. We need more energy all the time.
Yes. And
we need clean energy. My big thing is if every coal-fired power plant in the world, keep nuclear is important. We won't go into that right now. If every coal power plant was replaced by natural gas, we would not have that 2 to 3 degrees magical that the alarmists are talking about. Okay. We would not have any global warming.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
So again, you know, and again, because of time, I want to get to a couple of other important topics. One of them is your love for music and the Allman Brothers, the Outlaws, and all good things. But I really implore our audience to drill down on the impact. Like, ask yourself, would it be good for our nation to be more energy independent or not? What's the answer? We've been at war in the Middle East for forever, and I have to believe, and I think everybody, Democrat, Republican, anybody I ever talk, they're like, it's about the oil, man. We know it. You know, there's issues and I think ending that and becoming more self-reliant. The term sovereign. A sovereign nation derives its own health, wealth, prosperity, direction from itself. And we've lost that, man. You know, so I think the business that you're in, I think the energy industry is taking an unfair hit from many on the left. And I implore our audience to dig into some facts, some objective facts, and really ask yourself right now, you know, why not? Why not support, you know, the American-made energy here at home? Your music love. Man, I think I remember hearing you play on the hill over there. I'd be out burning a fire with some friends, and I'd hear guitars and vocal, and you know, like you've improved a lot. I'd hear and I'd like, well, I like his music, man. I like what you're trying to sing.
Still a hack.
Yeah, but you've taken you love playing guitar, you love singing. You have a band, the Mark Caskey Project.
Yep.
From time to time, I've had the privilege of drumming with you and Matt and Jim Gregorakis. And you've taken lessons from Matt now 3 years.
3 years. We just celebrated our 3 years.
Yeah, and you've improved. And the band's a good band. We've had some fun and enjoyed some things.
Oh, we got to open up for your band before.
Yeah, and you did something really sweet, and I think a lot of fun for for Annie Pugar, the Sonny Pugar Memorial. Correct. Right. Talk about that. What was that all about?
So Matt Brandy, my guitar teacher and bandmate in the Mark Caskey Project, is a musician, and he's a great musician. He was my idol when I was 16 years old, and he was 21 or something. You know, seeing him when you're a kid, and then he was an Allman Brothers fanatic and still is, you know, to this day. But he's gone so far and above the Allman Brothers with more jazz and blues stylings and on all those types of things. So. It really got to me thinking, Matt's out of work. You know, Bill Ali's out of work. These that's their job. Yeah. And so many musicians, Fred DeLue, all the guys that are in Matt's and Bill Ali's band. Some of them have day jobs, but these guys don't. They've dedicated their careers to musicians, and it's not like they're making millions, you know, but they can't even get a gig right now. So it was a way to give back to some of the musicians. We want to do it again. We want to make it. We had problems technology on the donate button. I think we have that figured out. You know, but we were able to raise I think right around $1,000, something like that.
That's sweet, man.
You know,
and I've talked with Annie. You know, I did a gig at one of the hospitals with Hollis Greathouse, Matt, and I. Yeah. And I told her, I said, you know what? I had no idea what you guys were about. I did see they did a gig up at Frankie I's with the Granati brothers. And I loved it. But I didn't know what it was about.
It's called Music Smiles. They used to have it down at the Meadows, and they moved it up to Frankie's. I believe I was in Florida at the time, so I didn't make that one. But Frankie was great for donating a lot of stuff too. Nice. And that's the way it happens. These are the musicians. Sonny Pugar Memorial. They go to Children's Hospital, but they go to St. Clair Hospital in Jefferson, and all the hospitals.
It was meaningful, man.
Yeah.
I told Annie, thank you. I'd love to do it again. It was one of the best one of the most high points of joy for me as a drummer, playing with Matt and Hollis for purely nothing other than the love of the game. You know,
right.
Vicky was scheduled to be
Vicky
there.
Andreas.
Yeah, Vicky Andreas. Yeah.
So the month before we did, you were up in Franklin at the time at your cabin. We raised money for the Washington County Women's Shelter.
Nice.
You know, and in the middle of this COVID, there's if you talk to any of the cops right now, there's a lot of abuse going on.
Yes.
You know, there's a lot of alcoholism, drug abuse going on with people stuck in their houses.
Yeah, recidivism.
You know?
So you love music. You love certainly the Southern genre, right?
Born in the South, you know. I can remember hearing Duane Allman. The first song I ever heard was Midnight Rider, and one of the earliest hits. You know, Greg wrote that when he was 16, 17 years old or some ridiculous thing. You know, Sweet Melissa and all that. You know, I'm a kid.
Love that.
You
too,
know,
man.
and
love Melissa too.
Yeah.
So you were a major fan, and I understand you had some close interaction with the Allmans down south.
Well, not down south, up here.
Up here?
So this was back in the 80s. This was after the Allman Brothers kind of broke up, and they would travel, the Greg Allman Band and the Dickie Betts Band. And Dickie Betts was great Southern. And they used to play at Graffiti all the time. They would play at Heaven downtown, which was kind of a disco place in the 70s. Very bizarre, but a great place to see a show. Yeah. But they played Graffiti a lot, and they usually played it two or three times a year. And God, I was at Pitt at the time, and was down there, and somebody grabbed me, and I was lifting a lot of weights, and I was a lot bigger and more better shape than I am in now, less stomach, 30 pounds ago. Said, we need your help, and these are big biker dudes, and I'm like, what do you want? And they said, you're going to have to carry Greg Allman up and down these stairs. And these stairs were 3 to 4 flights long from the loading dock. I don't know how they got there was a freight elevator that you could take some of the amps and drums and stuff like that. But from the dressing room, the green room up, it must have been 120 stairs or something. And Greg's a little tipsy. He's not gonna make it on. I don't know. So you're gonna carry him up. So it was great. The Greg Allman Band would play, so I had to carry Greg up, and I had to watch him. You said
you would get him to the piano.
Yep.
And from there you would never know he was tipsy, right? It was like he just crushed it.
I basically would carry him up those stairs, walk him to the piano, fend off all the fans, and then I would sit right next to the piano on the stage, and I would get him his glasses of water. Water and lemon is usually
something.
You would never, and he'd grunt the whole way up the stairs. But once he took that microphone, every note was perfect, And so I got to do that. And then every time they came, I got to know Ronnie Esser from Moondog is what his name did over in
yeah.
And he saw what was going on, so he would call me every time, and we actually played. James Fournier and I played there, so we got to know Ronnie a little bit. And he would call me and say, "The Allman Brothers coming back." And then Kirk West would have my number. We'd go back, and I did it 3 or 4 times, in the next 3 or 4 years. And Pittsburgh was always a good stop for the Allman Brothers. But the Marshall Tucker Band, got to know those guys real well. Charlie Daniels, back in the day.
The Outlaws. You took me to
the Outlaws.
We had the backstage pass.
Yeah, backstage with Henry Paul and Monty Yoho and all the guys. They're just fantastic. They're real people. They're it's what I grew up on. My kids laugh at me that we're doing all this Southern rock and Rolling Stones and old stuff. We haven't learned a new song in 40 years. They laugh at me, but it was real. It is real music, and it's everlasting. And I'm not so sure that Ariana Grande is going to last. In 50 years from now. I'm not picking on Ariana Grande.
I get what you mean. We call it classic rock or Southern rock for a reason.
Right. Yeah.
Dude, we're running out of time. We're living in pretty unique times, right? We've got a few minutes left. Here we are. It's 2020. It's the United States of America, the land of the free, the home of the brave. And you and I, although it's getting better, right? There's a little more liberty movement-wise here in Pennsylvania. We've been in a very unique lockdown for a prolonged period of time as a risk mitigation effort for a medical issue, and I've heard people describe it many ways as radical as medical fascism. There are some people that, and respectable people have called it that, and then you have the divide on the other side. What do you see? Where are we at as a country? A country that is a constitutional republic, a country that has a constitution, a Bill of Rights. What do you see happening? You're 58, right? You've seen a lot, and it doesn't mean you're any smarter, any better necessarily in some things that a whippersnapper, as you call it. But you learn some things. 58 times around the sun. Where are we at, man? What are some concerns?
I know we're pushing the clock, Tom. All the models were way off. The models were wrong. The WHO models were wrong. The Chinese models were wrong. So to go into this, we were supposed to flatten the curve, and I think everybody's cool with the 14 or 15
days.
Yeah, we'll be all right.
Yeah.
We have a 99.8% chance, people our age that are in somewhat decent health, of being fine.
Yes.
To lock down, we shoulda, coulda, woulda. But what scares me, especially in Pennsylvania, is we're still in yellow right now. You and I should not even, be in the same room without masks, whatever the rules are. That Governor Wolf is able to take his executive order is what they use now. Executive order is nothing but dictator power to me, right? This has not got in front of the assembly. This has not gotten in front of the state senators, the legislator, and things like that. This is one man making all this. Okay?
Yes, it is.
And I wish we had time.
And his influencers, right?
Right.
The coalition, but yeah, it is. and we don't have time to go into today. But it is.
You can have my wife next week.
Well, you know.
No, you can't have her.
No, I know what you mean. But she is going to be our guest, and she has taken. She's taken a very close look at this. I'm very interested to hear some of the things that she has studied, and I know she's a student of it. I know she has a passion for it, being a mother, having young children, as I do. I have children and grandkids. But, dude, I tell you what, I really appreciate...
Can I say just one more thing?
You sure
How can it be okay for 800 people to be in a big box retailer, whether it's Walmart or Target or anything, but it's not okay for 30 or 40 people to be in a church spread out 10, 15 feet? You can't even worship in your own church?
Yeah.
Something's wrong.
Something's wrong. And I'm surprised that more people haven't come to that same conclusion. We're all looking at the same thing. And I've come to the same conclusion. The right to assemble, peaceful assembly, many things as it relates to our rights. I'm very concerned about it, as you are. And friends, again, you know, we don't. I don't want to be always talking about the problem, and I don't even want to kind of force anybody to come to a conclusion. What I love to do is share facts, look at things, you know, bring personalities on, and kind of go, hey, this is really what's happening. You come to whatever conclusion you want,
right?
But be open-minded, you know, because I will say, you know, there have been times like I've changed. I have added amendments to my personal constitution, and I think that's a natural part of living. You know, so I would challenge you, friends, to be open-minded, do your own research. Dude, you're an awesome neighbor, by the way, a great friend. I have nothing but love and respect for you, for Marty, the girls, Steel Nation. I wish you all the best, and thanks for being my guest today, Mark.
Thank you, Tom.
Okay.
Love you too, man.
Okay, but appreciate it. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.